Your journey here. It's been a long day in the air. What's it like for you to come to Los Angeles the week of the fight and get things kicked off? What are your emotions right now?
Júnior, você teve um dia longo desde que você saiu de casa. Conta pra gente um pouco como é que foi seu dia, como é que é essa sensação, chegar aqui em Los Angeles e tá chegando tão perto da data da sua primeira defesa de cinturão.
Yeah, it was a long trip from Brazil. It's almost 24 hours traveling, and yeah, I'm a little bit tired now, but I'm feeling good. And, this week we have a big fight, my first title defense, and I'm looking forward to be in the cage again.
Questions, guys? Sorry.
J.D.S, we know that this is your first title defense, but big news after your first title fight against Cain Velasquez. You hurt your knee. How's that doing?
That's doing great. I'm feeling like 100%. I did the surgery on my knee after the fight, and the recovery was very good. But I did very well, and I'm feeling 100%.
Has it slowed you down at all? I mean, it's a relatively quick turnaround for the type of injury you had, a meniscus tear.
What?
Que se isso deixou você mais lento, que você teve uma recuperação bastante rápida para o tipo de lesão que você sofreu, uma lesão de menisco.
Yeah, but that was a very simple surgery, and I recovered very fast. I did everything that the doctor asked for me, and my recovery was fast. But I think because I did the in the right way. I'm sorry.
Everybody's so shy today. Frank, talk about what it means for you to obviously have a chance to become a three-time heavyweight champion. You've been in the sport we were talking about earlier, going on over 10 years now. So what does it mean for you to get this opportunity at this point in your career?
It's a huge moment in my life and career. I think everybody, eventually one day we retire and we're forgotten as athletes and as fighters. Things, move on and the new fighters come in. And I think in all sports and all endeavors in life, people try to somehow make their mark on history. Right now I'm tied with Randy Couture as far as being a two-time heavyweight champ, and to become a third-time heavyweight champ only pushes the mark that much farther, and it gives me something to brag about to my grandchildren that at one time Grandpa was actually able to move from one side to the other room without hobbling too hard, and this is what I used to do.
Hey Frank, can you talk about, you're obviously a relatively late replacement here for Alistair Overeem, but what would you say to your detractors that say that, you haven't done enough to be in the position you're at right now, fighting for a title?
I would be very curious to see what they would have felt would have been enough to constitute a shot. And if I wasn't the individual that they choose, who is and why? And I'd be very curious to see as far as, I have more wins than any other heavyweight in the division. I've already been a multiple-time champion. I'm on a win streak over very notable names in our division. I heard, a lot of names, Mark Hunt being brought up. And I think Mark Hunt is a very excellent fighter, a K1 champion, very, dangerous individual for anybody to face. But his last three opponents aren't the last three opponents I had. I fought Mirko Krokop, Roy Nelson, and Nogueira, who are three people that in the heavyweight division, when you talk about legends, those guys, they're up there. Mirko is a legend, Nogueira is a legend. Roy Nelson is somebody that I don't think a lot of heavyweights like to pull up. No one's ever really been able to, in the UFC, to finish him or stop him. He's gone the distance with, Junior and myself. Even his loss with Verdum, no one could put this guy away. So he is also an equally tough opponent that at any given moment is always in the fight.
Has it been tough for you to get up for this fight? A lot of times, I know you're fighting for the belt, so, obviously there's going to be a little bit of motivation there. But you've been known as a guy historically that has, I guess been adversarial to some opponents. But the guy sitting next to you is one of the nicest dudes in the world,
No,
so.
absolutely. Junior and I actually, every time I've ever met him, has been extremely respectful, and I can't help but treat him back the same. The guy is what you see. He's a very nice individual, a very nice guy. I think they have very similar personalities in a lot of ways. But we're both competitors, and that's the thing. We can go in the gym, and you know, I fight some of my hardest battles are in practice and sparring, and these are some of my closest friends that I'm trying to punch in the face, and they're trying to punch me in the face. And at the end of the night, it's over with. We get to talk about where we're going on Friday and what's going to happen, because there's no animosity. We don't have to be angry at each other for it to be a great fight, for us to try hard, because we're in love with fighting itself. All the other things that come outside of it, that's kind of more for the fans. But as far as two men dancing in the octagon together and trying to outsmart each other and see what can work and what can't work and go back and forth, that's the part I'm in love with. And I don't have to have ill feelings. I don't have to like you or dislike you to add to it. In fact, actually, I try to keep them about as emotionally neutral as possible.
Is there a revenge factor, Junior, for what happened with Frank's match in Big Nog?
No, of course not. Like I said, it's you know, MMA is amazing sport, you know, and I think his fight against my mentor, he just capitalized a good moment, you know, and in the fight, I said that he's really good on when he catch, like when he's living a good moment in the fight, he's a monster. He's very dangerous, you know, so you have to be careful with that. And but if of course it's not a revenge, I'm fighting for myself, I'm fighting for my family, and to keep the things going like the things are now, you know, in my life. And I'm really happy, I'm living good times, and I want to keep everything going like that.
Zagano, how's your life changed?
Change a lot. You know, I come from a small city in Brazil, and now people recognize me on the streets a lot, you know, and I'm how can I say, MMA style famous in my, especially in my country now. So it's very important for me, you know. I think I'm making proud my family, my mom, and those people who loves me and who is by my side.
Can you imagine this 1 year ago today? I mean,
No.
Your life was completely different a year ago.
Yeah, I never imagined nothing like that in my life, you know. I never meant to imagine to be a fighter one day, but now I am, and everything what I do, I try to do my best, you know. I give my best on that, and I think I'm just enjoying what I deserve, because I work hard every day, and I believe when you work hard, you deserve to get nice things.
Frank, you were originally supposed to fight Overeem. What are your thoughts on him, you know, failing whatever tests he failed, you know, banned substances that he had in his body? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm feeling, actually, I don't care about that, you know. It's a problem of him and between him and the athletic commission, you know. So I don't care too much about that. I was a little bit frustrated when I didn't know who was gonna be my next opponent, when they told me he failed on the drug test. So that was a little bit hard to, you know, to put my title on the line, and I didn't know who's gonna be my opponent, you know. But then they put a Frank Mir, and I changed a little bit my camp, and now I'm happy. I'm here and I'm ready to fight.
Frank, is Junior the best boxer you faced in mixed martial arts, you think?
Oh, absolutely. You know, a lot of people want to use opinions that are just based off of emotions when they make any kind of a declaration or, you know, a statement. But if you look at, you know, Junior, his knockout record and who he's knocked out and the first round knockouts he has, how could you argue that he's not the most prolific boxer we have right now in the heavyweight division?
As a guy who's been in this division for a long time, you've seen a lot of guys come and go. Where does the state of the division compare right now to where it's been when you've seen it when you were champion, when you were coming out, and just looking at this card?
You know, I think the one thing is just the depth. You know, obviously at the UFC we've always had the best fighters in the world in the weight classes. But typically in the heavyweight division, you know, top 5 was the dangerous guys vying for the title. You know, top 10 maybe, you know, you would talk about them when they were in the conversation. But right now, we've never, I don't think 5-6 years ago, could have had a card that had 5 bouts of heavyweights fighting. And so I think that just shows the depth pool that we have now, that we've had, and it isn't like we haven't had any fights this year in the heavyweight division, and we're not going to be able to have any. We were able to have that kind of depth where we've had, on top of that, we've had injuries and replacements and people having to move around. If you would have had a card 5 years ago with 5 heavyweights and one guy gets hurt, the card's going to be, scrapped. I would be shocked to see it make the distance. And look how many changes we've gone through on this card from the very top to bottom. I don't think, and Dave would be the expert on this, is any of the fights the same as when they first declared them? Any of the matchups?
They are not.
Not a single matchup, but still kept 5 heavyweight fights that are of consequence and have relevance in the title picture in the future.
Frank, how have you maintained this high level of, fighting, in the heavyweight division of the UFC? Not that you're an old man or anything, but I mean, you've been around.
You feel like an old man every time we talk about Junior's fight. I'm trying to get ready to find some Depends. I'm worried about the prostate exam. I thought it was years away. I'm ready. It's around the corner.
How have you maintained that level and constantly being, in the hunt for the title, defending the title? You've been.
I've tried to learn from successes and from my defeats. Anytime I go into the gym after every fight, you break down, and I'm constantly searching to be a better martial artist. That is what really, fighting UFCs really was primarily for. I mean, the fact that I can make money at it, the fact that you can win titles at it, this is all awesome, and there are great, benefits to it. But at the end of the day, I want to find out who I am, because I don't think that, I'm not, if you want to find out about an atom, what do? You smash it against another atom and you break it apart and you see all the pieces. So I don't look at this as a failure. Whenever I've tripped up or had defeat in life like anybody else, you run into obstacles and you crash. But then that's when you get to find out about yourself and you break it apart, and I can grow and grow stronger. So that's one thing that the UFC's been for me, is a constant improvement. And I guess because sometimes, and I point to that, you'll see fighters that are extremely talented and great, but then you see them 5 years later, and the only thing is that they're better at what they do well. They're even more proficient. If they were a striker, they're a better striker, but they haven't added to their game. If they're a grappler, they're a more proficient grappler, but they haven't added to their game. If you look at me in my first couple fights, against Tank Abbott, I literally was pulling guard to work the ground game. In my fights now, going now and go, 6, 7 years later, I'm fighting Mirko Prokop in a fight that never goes to the ground, and I win by knockout. How many other fighters can say that they've had that much of an evolution in their game?
This guy speaks very well.
I'd like to keep it that way. You throw a few by, it is my birthday coming up.
When we were talking to Junior earlier, he was saying how you can't be a great fighter unless you faced adversity. You can't just go in there and expect a knockout or submission, first round every time. And he said that's why, he's been a good fighter. Can you talk about that too?
Oh, yeah, I think adversity makes all people greater. The Hakaguri is a book of samurai, and it talks about suffering. That's why I always nickname my gym Suffering. It's the second chapter, or second article, how suffering makes you a better person. The problem with me that I had in my life is my father, and my upbringing, I didn't have a hard life. Someone like Cigano, from what I understand, had a more difficult life growing up as far as in parts of Brazil, the economy and whatnot. It made him tough growing up. If you look at like Nogueira, what he went through when he was 9 and got ran over by the truck, that's what made him tough. So he already was at a certain toughness level before he walked into the octagon. Whereas me, I had to almost kind of face it in the gym. When I won the title the first time, I would never tell anybody I was a tough person. Not that I'm that tough of a guy to begin with, but it came easy at that point. Me getting into that car wreck was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it took away the fact that I was a good athlete. And then I got away with things in the ring that necessarily weren't because I was skilled, but because I was talented physically. And then it took away that and made it to relied upon my mind. And I failed several times. I go out there and put together a puzzle. Okay, we're going to try this, and go out there and boom, fall flat on my face. Lose to, Pedro Pano Cruz. Lost to this guy. No one even knows who he is now. Go and then, barely beat Dan Christensen in a fight that really, honestly, could have went either way, And again, here's somebody who's not, a top flight competitor. Fight after that, Brandon Vera, who's now is a light heavyweight. Lost his first 2 minutes against him. So as far as facing adversity and having to overcome it, I went from that to then going to submitting a Brock Lesnar, to win an interim title from Nogueira, and going off. And now I've put myself in a position where I'm actually vying against one of the toughest competitors that ever faced the UFC in junior, and I'm here, and I think that's my ability to overcome adversity and to push forward.
Junior, how did your training change? You're preparing for Overeem, now you're preparing for Frank Mir, or did it change?
Yeah, it changed a little bit, you know. Frank Mir is southpaw and black belt, jiu-jitsu black belt, you know. And Alistair Overeem is really different. He's a right handle, and he likes to strike, you know. He likes to keep the fight standing. So they are different, and so I have to do some adjustments on my camp. But I think I had really good people helping me there, you know, in Brazil, and I did a really good camp. I think the best camp I ever did.
Frank, how about you, going from Velasquez to Dos Santos? Did you training change, or is it more just focusing on what you do?
More focused on what I do. You know, I was lucky enough to both my opponents still fight out of the same stance. You know, I think that people are short-sighted. They write off, you know, Velasquez that he's not a good boxer. Well, it just happened that he faced Junior, who's a better boxer, and he caught him. I don't think that takes away from that. It's funny how a lot of Americans think it's like, oh, he automatically sucks. I'm like, really? The #1 guy caught him with a knockout, and now he's no good at it. Okay, you know, I don't think so, and so I'm going to make sure I still respect his boxing and respect his wrestling. And then I guess the one thing that's actually one of the hardest things to go in is that, you know, as far as Junior stand-up, we have footage of it. I mean, no one's been able to solve that puzzle and get past it. So I have lots of footage of him hitting pads and him in the ring fighting. The unknown factor is what happens if he goes to the ground. No one can get him there. No one's able to put him there. So, I mean, there's a situation going in where I feel confident, though I may be very good there. It might be a situation where he's extremely accomplished there. He's like, I always make jokes. Anybody ever seen the movie Quickly Down Under?
Yeah.
Right, at the end of the movie where he sits there, he goes, I never said I couldn't use one. I just said I wasn't partial to it. When he pulled out the 6 gun. You know, that could be the case. So really it's a known factor. I don't have footage and I don't have ability to look at it and say, oh, look, you know, when he's here, he doesn't go and escape. He goes and he pulls the half guard, or he's very strong in the guard. And when he goes guard, he likes his hips low, or does he like the ankles high? These are all unknown factors.